Hi everybody, Dave Engen again from Minnesota State Mankato. This is the third and final video on how to use the Marantz video recorder. And what we're going to do in this video is go ahead and do an actual interview and how we use the recorder to do an interview with someone. I'm working from the assumption that most of you will be using these recorders to record stories from loved ones or members of your community. Record oral history type of stories, and these recorders are great for that. They give you a wonderful sound. We have a special guest with us today who's going to help us out.
Hi,
This
Lucy.
is Lucy. Lucy's a student here at Minnesota State Mankato and has been kind enough to join us for the interview portion. So we are going to go through the process as if I am interviewing Lucy for some kind of a project. And Lucy, if you don't mind, we'll come over here and we'll get face to face with one another. Now, you'll interview individuals in a lot of different settings. You might interview them in their living rooms or their kitchens, or perhaps a room at the Historical Society. And your challenge is always getting situated so that you can get very close to the person and record in a way that will give you excellent sound. Ultimately, the microphone is going to be held about 3 inches or so from the person's face who you're interviewing, which is a little awkward, you might say. But we'll get through the awkwardness with humor, perhaps. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put my headphones on. I'm going to turn the recorder on, which I just did there, the on-off button. And then I will often mention to the person, the joke with the microphone is to get close and then get closer. All right, and what the reason is, it really records just an excellent version of your voice. Okay, and so I'm going to hold the microphone about right here, if that's okay. Now you'll notice what I'm doing here. First of all, be careful with your microphone cord; it makes noise. But you'll hear that in your headphones. All right, and I've made a little bit of a joke. Get close, then get closer. I've acknowledged this is a little bit awkward.
A little bit.
Right, right. But frankly, people usually ignore it and start sharing stories from their lives. And I also do tell people, we do it so we get such a wonderful recording of your voice. All right? But you're going to hold it about 3 inches from the person's face and a little bit off to the side. You don't want to hold it right underneath because it picks up certain P sounds from people and makes a bad sound. All right? Now the first thing that I do is I usually ask the person, say, I'm going to try to get my recording levels set up. And so if you don't mind, I'm just going to ask you kind of a silly question and just test the recording levels. All right? And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to turn the recorder on. And what I'm going to do here is I am going to ask, Lucy, would you mind saying the alphabet, please?
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z.
All right. And I'm watching the level here, and if I need to, I can adjust. I should see a little bit of orange in here. I should be at about 6. That tells me we're okay. So testing 1, 2. Okay. And go ahead, please, and just the alphabet once more.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W.
Thank you. All right. And so that's great. All right. Now, what I usually do, since I don't necessarily want that in my recording, is I hit stop, and then I hit record to start my interview. You really almost always should have a list of typed up questions. Whatever questions you have should be typed up and set somewhere. I don't think it's a great idea to sit and hold them in your hand because, first of all, they make noise, and also it seems kind of like you're reading questions. But if you can set them off to the side, when I write interview questions, I use a big font so that I can just look off to the side and see them. And then I can be kind of conversational here as well. But I'm going to go ahead and start the interview. Sometimes people will start with an identification. I am here with Lucy, I don't know your last name. Teixeira, on May 31st, 2016. And we're going to sit down for a bit of an interview. Lucy, if you don't mind, can you introduce yourself and talk about your connection to Minnesota State Mankato?
Yes. My name is Lucy Teixeira. It's actually like the first baseman for the Yankees, Mark Teixeira, so it helps to know how to pronounce it. I am a student here at Minnesota State Minnesota State University, Mankato. I am a senior. I am an international student from France, actually, and I'm studying communication studies. Yeah.
Great. Right. Now, notice what I've done here is we've got the microphone in great placement. I'm just listening. Try to be as attentive. Try to make eye contact. Ask follow-up questions, whatever the case might be. Can you tell me a little bit about why you study communication?
It's a great question, actually. I feel like there's two kinds of people that study communication here. People that are more in it for forensics, and people that are more in it for the science of it, that you get out of it. So I'm in it more for the science, how people communicate and how different cultures interact, rather than like the public speaking part of it, because I'm really bad at public speaking, as you can see.
I don't think that's true. But, okay, great. So notice what's happening here, and you might even see me once in a while. I glance down just to make sure that my recording levels are okay. I can also hear in my headphones that things are going okay. And then if I wanted to ask another question, I can just glance over at my question sheet. You don't have to answer this one, but I might just go over and I might say, can you tell me about your earliest childhood memory? Okay. Now, don't feel like you have to answer that one, but it's a great question, though, isn't it? Yeah.
It is.
Okay. So that's how the interview process would go. Now, just a few things to keep in mind. If you want your voice to sound, to be heard, you can slide the microphone over just a little bit when you ask a question, and then you can slide it back for the answer. Slide it here and over. People have different preferences. This will make you more a part of the recording because you're recording your voice. Here you're kind of off the microphone. Here's a huge mistake that people make and that ruins oral history recordings all the time. Lucy, I am going to ask you to talk a little bit more about what do you love about college?
It's a great place to learn and to just interact with people and professors and meet people.
No, so what I'm doing there, I don't know if you can hear it on the recorder, I'm saying which we often do as a listener, right? Which is a nice thing to do as a listener. It's ruining the recording because that is all being recorded. So Lucy's telling me her life story, and in her life story you have So you should be a silent listener. I often will tell people that, hey, I'm not going to give verbal feedback too much at all because it will ruin the recording. Because otherwise it almost seems kind of rude. Like, okay. Couple other things as we bring this to a close. It is fine to let the recording go for 30 or 40 minutes on one track. But now when I hit, let's say the interview has been brought to a close, and I hit stop, you will see that track 17, that is the interview track. And the people at the Historical Society can work with you on how to get that recording off of this card and onto a computer. It's a relatively easy task. When you are interviewing people in a room, you're almost always doing it in a room unless you're outside, which is not good unless you want to sound like you're outside. But when you are interviewing somebody in a room, it is often good to just do a sound survey, even to just turn on the recorder and listen. Are there any hums? Are there any really bad sounds that are making your recording sound bad? And very often there is. It's things like a computer in the background. Many people like to be interviewed in their kitchen, and the refrigerator is quite loud. I will often ask people if I can turn the refrigerator off or unplug it, and then I put my car keys in the refrigerator so I don't leave their refrigerator unplugged. That's a little trick I learned. But listen for any really bad sounds. Don't interview somebody when somebody's watching TV in the next room or something like that, because it will come on to the recording and ruin the recording. I think that's about everything we need to say. Make it a conversation. I know this seems a little awkward. I find, to be honest, that as awkward as the microphone is initially, it ends up being a license into people's lives. It's even more awkward, it seems, to just come to somebody's home and say, I want to learn about your life, and just start asking questions. But if you have the microphone, after 5 minutes, the person seems to start ignoring it. You just hold it in place. and have a wonderful conversation and capture with a really beautiful sound a person's voice and story. So I'll go ahead and stop here. Thanks for your time.